So yesterday, my wife took our '08 Expedition here out to go run some errands and do some shopping. And about a half hour later, I get a call from her and she says, "Hey, I just pulled into the parking lot, and when I got out, this silver thing came out of the ignition. What am I supposed to do?" Now, me being the kind of considerate husband that I am, I just said, "Well, you know what, hon? That thing there is called a key. And what you do is you take that out, you put it in your purse, take it in, go shopping, and when you come back out, you put it back in there and start the car and move on." Well, needless to say, she didn't really care for my answer, and here's why. When she got there and took her key out, what happened was all the internals for our cylinder here came out with the key. So we got to get this fixed and get it fixed right away, because you could easily steal this vehicle at this point. Not to mention this here is a pretty big pain in the rear, and we don't want to have the car shut off while we're driving it. So I stopped over here at my local Ford dealership and I picked up a cylinder rebuild kit for our lock. And I'm going to go through this. I'm going to give you a part number, give you some links to it in the description, and show you how we do this. I'm also going to show you how we set this new one up so that it accepts our existing key, and you don't have to mess with any of that. You don't have to have anything reprogrammed. All we're going to do is change out that lock cylinder and get back on the road again. So let's get started. Step 1, disconnect your negative battery cable and set it off to the side. We're now looking up at the bottom of your steering column, and basically you have 3 fasteners that you're going to have to remove here, here, and here to be able to get this cover off so we can get into that cylinder. Now each one of these is a 5.5 millimeter, and you'll go ahead and remove those. Now the next thing you want to do is get this cover off of your steering column. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lower it down to a lower position, and I use a tool like this. Now this here technically is called a tack removal tool, and I'll tell you what, I use this thing like crazy here around my garage doing all sorts of things with cars. These little small pry bars on here, those little teeth, just do great for taking electrical connections apart or pulling apart a panel. I'm going to give you a link down below in the description where you can get one of these. You could also use a straight screwdriver. But what I'm going to do is you have this crease right in through here, and that's where our lower piece and our upper piece come together. And we're just going to work this in there and pry those two apart, and then move over to the other side and then remove our cover. Same thing here on the left hand side. We just want to work our little pry bar in there and separate these two pieces just like that. Now once I've done that, my steering column's down as low as I can get it. You can just lift up on this top piece and pull it out. Now what I can do is I can raise my steering wheel up, and now we'll take off the bottom side so we have access to our cylinder. We need to remove this little piece that's here that goes around the outside, and it's part of your patch system, and you'll see it has this wire that runs off to the side. Basically it picks up on the code inside your key and tells the computer system to actually start and run your car. So we need to get this out of the way so we can get to the pin that's located up right in here to be able to push it in and slide this out. Now to remove this, if you look right up in here, right there, you'll see it has a little locking tab, and basically I'm just going to use something like this and pry it out, and I'm trying to do this without looking. But then let me show you, if you'll look over opposite on the other side, and hopefully we can manage to get this where you can see it, you'll see right there, there's one over there as well that's opposite of this one here. Now you can see them both in perspective right now. So you want to get in there, loosen those tabs up, pull this forward, and just let it hang down. Now that we have that removed around the outside of the cylinder, I'm going to be using like a straight screwdriver, and basically right in this slot right in here is your retaining ring or a pin, and you're going to push in on that right there, and you'll take your other hand, and I'm holding the camera so I can't do it, but you'll push that in, and with your other hand pull out this remaining part of your cylinder. Up there, I did get it loose. And just like this, you can go ahead and remove that. So this here is what that looks like. The part number of our kit that we're going to be using today is AU5Z-11582-b, and I'm going to go ahead and just get this opened up here for you. And I brought a white towel out here. Hopefully you can see all these smaller pieces that are included with this kit. And I'll go ahead and get things out of here. And always the first thing I like to get my hands on here is the instructions, make sure they're included. There are 4 pages in that, and here's a PDF copy, so you could actually stop this and go back and review those should you like, but instructions naturally are included with this kit. Now, as we go through, it does include 5 bags of tumblers, as you see I'm going through here, and each one of those bags has a number on them. You'll see they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and those are the different size of tumblers, and you don't necessarily use all the different numbers that are included in this kit, and I'll show you later how we go through and find that out. Next, in our bag here, we have our case and our cylinder along with the cap. We also have our white lithium grease that's included. We also have our tumbler springs, and there's 8 that come with the kit. You're only going to need 7, but they give us an extra. And then last but not least, we have our actuator and our retainer that's included with the kit as well. So if we start down here on the end, here we have our little springs, and I'm sure it's going to stick to this because we're magnetic here. But here's your little springs. Your kit comes with 8 of these springs. You're actually only going to end up using 7 of them, so more or less you have 1 extra one that is right here. So if you end up with an extra one, don't worry about that. That's because maybe you'll lose one along the way. They do actually provide you with an extra one. Now, in terms of our tumblers, we have these right here, and I laid these out. I have 5 here because you come with 5 different sets of tumblers in your kit. And basically, down at the bottom right in here, you'll see they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So as you take the tumblers out of your old ignition, what you're going to want to do is, as you pull these out, you're going to want to get that number off the bottom so you can get the proper number in your new one so that they line up. And so that's how those go. Now, I thought I'd show you basically how those will sit, and maybe I can get my spring here to catch, and naturally it's not going to want to cooperate. But basically right there is how those sit inside the main part of the cylinder. So you'll see it has that little lip that sticks out there on the tumbler, and it rests on the spring as you see here. Now if I was to take, like, here's my new centerpiece on here, and what'll happen is you have these grooves like you see in here, but on one side, which would be over in here, which is the wider side, that turns wider. So more or less it looks like a keyhole. And what'll happen is you'll actually take and slide that spring down inside that keyhole. And maybe here I can pop one of these out and be able to show you exactly what I'm talking about. There we go. So I took this one out here. So as I'm trying to show this, and hopefully you'll be able to see it because this is the old one, it's kind of dirty, but see right here is the spring, and I'm taking that out there. So what'll happen is you'll slide your spring into this one side here, and then you'll take your tumbler and you'll put it with this little lip here that sits on top of that spring, and on this case you'll see how it's kind of rounded out there, and basically what'll happen is that will kind of go down inside of there. Let me get my hand out of the way, like so, and then you'll press down on that, and eventually it will lock into place. Now, what I ran into as I did my work here is I also used my little small straight screwdriver, and I would just use this end here that's soft, and I would use that to push on it, and eventually you'll hear it kind of click, down into place just like that, and then it should move. So I just wanted you to be able to see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just slide these kind of out of our way a little bit and talk a little bit in terms of getting these tumblers removed. Now it kind of did give me some fits this time, and on the other vehicles I've worked on, I really haven't had the problems I did with this one. It could be the age or that these were really worn. So I wanted to show you. I ended up doing a couple of different ways of doing it. And I had some of them where I took a small straight screwdriver, and basically what'll happen is your wider end is where it's going to come out. The narrow end, as you see here, is the end you're going to push on. Now on your cylinder, on one side you have 4 of your tumblers, and on the other side you're going to have 3 tumblers. Okay, so let's say for example I wanted to take this tumbler out. I did one of 2 things. I'd take the flat end and I put it in that slot, and I kind of stand it up like this and then push, and sometimes that wouldn't necessarily get it out, and I wasn't real successful with it. And so then I switched over to just a pick, as you see that I have here. And what I would do is I would put it on the opposite side, but I put it opposite of where my spring is, so it would go on this side over here. And when I did that and pushed, a lot of times, just like there it's starting to, I was able to get success to get it to just kind of pop out and get past. Now basically what happens is you have like a stopper, and hopefully I can show you here. Right here on this side, just towards the bottom of your tumbler, there's just a tiny lip right there. And basically that lip is what's catching on things inside of your cylinder. And so you're trying to push your tumblers past that little lip so they don't catch anymore, so they can slide out. So I just ended up using my straight pick here, and I would just kind of push on it, and eventually it would just pop out. So for me doing this job, what ended up being the toughest thing in terms of my Fords here, and it's funny, I've done some GMs and I just didn't seem to have these problems with it, but I would just kind of work that in there, and eventually you'll feel that pop, and it'll actually make kind of a popping sound when it works its way out. And this one here is a great example because it's just not cooperating with me, and it's giving me some fits. So let me work a bit more on this side, and then you'll get a chance to see how that worked. Now sometimes too, what you can also do is you could try and put something through on the top side here and pry up, as you see I just did there. So there's some different ways that you can go about doing it. You'll have to figure out what's going to work best for you and your application to be able to get those tumblers out and out of your way. Now when it comes to coming back to doing our reassembly, I'm going to move these off to the side. Now these here are the bodies that our main cylinders will ride in, and basically this here is the 2 that I have here. Now here's my old one, naturally, as you can tell, because it's broke, and it has this cap that's on here, and then this rides inside of there. And if you look down inside of here, and I'm going to provide you a close-up picture of that now, what you're going to see is you have this little tab that sticks out right here on this end right here. And what you're going to want to do is line that tab up with this slot that's right here on this side. And as you'll do that, as you're pushing this cylinder down in there, you're going to have to depress all of these tumblers so it'll keep sliding in. And then once you get it in there towards the end, about 80% of the way down, there'll be another groove in there that this little piece will go into, and when that happens, then what you're able to do is actually turn it. And when you do, you'll actually hear all these different tumblers like click into place. And when I say click into place, they're going to be compressed as they're going down these sides here. But as you turn this, what'll happen is all of those tumblers will pop out into these 2 grooves that you see right here. And when they do, you're going to hear it click into place. Once you do that, then you're ready to go ahead and reassemble your mechanism back into your steering column. Now, before I do that, I want to add a little bit more lubrication onto some things in here just to try and make things work better and last longer. I'm going to lube through my tumblers here again. I did lube them as I assembled, and I want to go through and I want to add a little bit of lube down to my retainer and my actuator that's right here that moves, just so everything's moving nice and free when we get this reinstalled. So let me do my best here to show you how this works. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to set my old systems there out to the side, my old parts. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through here with my new one, and I just want to add some lubrication in through here. When we actually put our key inside of here, those tumblers should all move to where they're flush with that cylinder. And let me give you an idea how that works here. Just like that. So now that you see that I have my key inside that cylinder, you'll notice that the tumblers are now flush with the main body of that. So by doing that, now I know that I have actually all the proper tumblers for this particular key. And so while those are depressed down in there, I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit more grease in there. We just want everything to be nice and lubricated so everything works real good. So we're looking good there. So now we're ready to go ahead and remove my key, and then we're able to go ahead and put it up inside the cylinder here. So now, once again, we want to take this little groove, this little piece that's sticking out, we want to line that up with this groove that's inside the main part here. You want to look down inside of that cap there and line up your outside cap here with how your grooves are going to be down inside of there. And basically what you're going to have to do is you have to figure it's going to turn like a 90 degree. So what I want to do is I want to have, as I'm looking here, and here's that groove that it slides down in, it's sitting just like this, if that makes any sense to you. So this large retaining tab here is sitting over here, and the small one here that's for the actuator is over here, and then you have your groove. So now we can go ahead And we'll go ahead and start sliding that in as you see here. And then once again, as we go along, we're going to have to take something. You can take something like this pick or a straight screwdriver, but what you do is you're going to go ahead and you have to start pushing those in, your tumblers, as you press down. And what that'll do is it'll just continue to slide down in there, as you can see right here. Now, it looks like we're at a point now where we kind of need to adjust things. And we'll go ahead and press this last one in. And did you hear how that clicked right there? So now we've clicked into position. You'll see how it's moved into place, and we've gone back on this side and we've gone through, and when you're done you'll see now that your keyhole aligns with your actuator just like this. Now what we want to do is we want to test it and make sure that everything works. And once we click it all the way around, now we're locked into position. And I'm going to use my little screwdriver here and maybe I'll make it easier. You'll see now, if you look down through here, all of your different tumblers are now sticking out, and they've gone down inside of these different grooves that are down inside of here, and they're locked into position. So what we'll do now is we're going to take our key and we're going to push that in there, and we're just going to test it. And once we do, see how now everything's moving as it should. So we're now good to go. Just like that. So now we know our key works and everything is locked back into position. We're ready to go install this into the vehicle. So now we're ready to go ahead and install our new cylinder back into position. Now what I'm going to do is you're just going to take your key, you're going to put it in there. Don't forget you have this locking tab that needs to go there in the bottom. So this groove goes in there at 6 o'clock. So you're going to put your key in, you're going to move it. Let's say this is how it's sitting here. So your key would be at about 11 o'clock. I'm going to move it to where it's about 12 o'clock. 11:30, somewhere in there, and line this groove up that you'll see right here along with the bottom, and you're just going to slide that in to where it pushes in all the way like that. Once you have that in, you'll just turn your key back to the left, back to the off position, remove your key, and you've now installed your new cylinder. So I'm going to go ahead while it's in there, and I just want to do a double check, and my battery's still disconnected. But I want to make sure everything's nice and tight and my key is functioning like it should. Everything's looking real good there. So now what we can do is now we need to put our patch system back on here. So this just kind of lifts up and over. Don't forget you have these little tabs that you see right here that lock in on the sides. So we're just going to lift that up and on. And then we're going to lock this into position. I mean, line up over here. I'm trying to do it blind because I'm not looking. I don't want to get in front of the camera. And there we go. So now we have that locked into position. Before we put everything back on here, I'm going to go reconnect our battery now. And let's test out and see if our new key works as it should. We have our battery reconnected. So now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's do a test. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my key in. That's good. I'm hearing the dinging sounds. We want that. On my gauge, everything's coming back on as it should be. Now let's give it a try on the starter. And it's working. Now we're ready to get our cover put back on the steering column. And I brought you back over here onto this side because quite frankly, this side here is the hardest part because you're going to have to get your tilting mechanism, your handle back through here. And so basically I had to fight that quite a bit to get it out of there, and you're just going to kind of work it up underneath like you see me doing here, and then what you'll do is line it up like that and it's going to go through that groove. Once you do that, you'll go ahead and then on this other side over here you'll just line up the hole that was for your key with the hole that's in the bottom of your system here, or I'm sorry, of your cover. And then what you'll do is just lower this back down like that, and then you'll take your top cover and this groove here lines up with that one, and what you'll do is kind of fold it down in like that. And then if you'll notice that it has these little pins that are sticking out, and those will line up with some holes that are in your bottom cover there. And you'll just kind of push them and you'll hear that click together like that. You'll do the same thing over here on this side. You'll just line up those tabs. There we go, and everything clicked back together. Now I'm going to raise it back up again, and we'll go down below and we'll put our fasteners back in on the bottom side. So I hope to accomplish two things with this video here today. One, I wanted to be able to help you out so you could do this repair yourself, get your car back on the road and save you a ton of money. And number two, I'm looking to get myself out of the doghouse with the wife here, get her car up and running, get her happy with me again. You'll find out in my next video. If my next video is how to turn your garage into a living quarters, you'll know I was unsuccessful in my quest. We'll soon find out. But hey, if this video has been helpful for you, would you do me a favor? Hit that like button for me. It just lets YouTube and my wife know that I was able to help you out. If you'd like to see more videos like this one in the future, hit that subscribe button. Stick around with me here in the garage. Hey, as always, thanks for watching.